Hey everyone, and welcome to Melba Make It Make Sense, where I explain what is really going on with these cases. So welcome to the first episode. Super excited to go on this journey with all of you. So today we're tackling a question that's been on my mind for a while. Are we watching the rise of the court of public opinion as a legal strategy? Or more provocatively, are we being bamboozled by the government and law firms deliberately muddying the waters of ongoing investigations in high-profile cases online?
Oh, I say it again. You've been had. You've been took. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok.
But the core of today's episode is a truly important story about a French victim who decided to go public in the most deliberate and courageous way possible. So here we go. Before we get into the Pellico case, though, what's been happening the last few years where we've seen a huge trend of legal cases playing out not just in the courtrooms, but online? So think Trump, Comey, Patel, the Charlie Kirk case, Baldoni versus Lively, the Owens versus the Macrons. Like, this all shows firms strategically pushing out information to shape a narrative. And investigations that used to be quiet, procedural, and contained, right, are now loud and messy and publicly digested in real time. What was originally a sexual harassment complaints becomes Team Lively versus Team Baldoni, and the heart of the matter gets lost in the middle of all these online theories and conspiracies. But remember, even incredibly unlikable, horrendous, unpleasant people can still be victims of sexual assault, sexual harassment, or homicide. And this also can touch on domestic violence cases. Now, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. You know, that's a cause that's super close to my heart. So, this whole issue can touch on domestic violence cases, online radicalization, revenge porn, and digital smear campaigns, which sadly are becoming more and more common. These are really serious issues, and they get even more complicated when you throw social media into the mix, which turns every single legal misstep into a viral moment. Clicks have a cost, and it's not just the ad revenue. So to understand why, let's focus on a case where going public clearly worked and what we can learn from it. Gisèle Pelicot. Her story begins with a sexual assault. And unlike many victims who wish to stay anonymous, and rightfully so, she deliberately chose to go public. She kept her married name even though she was divorced from her husband, who was the perpetrator of this crime. She appeared on camera when she didn't have to, and she participated openly in court. But why? For her, she was very clear about this. She wanted to remove the stigma and send a very clear message. The perpetrator, her husband, is responsible, and she, as the victim, has nothing to be ashamed of. And her stance, her bravery, her strength has become symbolic. Her visibility has had tangible effects. She wanted everyone to know, if Madame Pelicot can do this, if Madame Pelicot can stand up, so can I. After her husband, Dominique Pelicot, was arrested for upskirting women in a mall, that the entire disgusting story came to light, where close to 100 men were sexually assaulting her.
How could you have betrayed me to this point? How could you have brought these strangers into my bedroom? I'm a woman who is totally destroyed, and I don't know how I can pick myself up from this.
Because her husband was drugging her, which is just unfathomable. Close to 90 men were identified, and about 70 of them ended up going to trial for a variety of reasons. But the main witness was the main defendant, Dominique Pelicot, who literally pointed at all these men in the courtroom and was like, you knew exactly what you came for. You and I spoke on this site. Here's the video of, what you did. This is not, I didn't know. And that is the argument that one of the men who was convicted in this case used as he tried to appeal. Hello, make that make sense. So Hussein Dogan, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, he was originally sentenced to 9 years as a result of the horrors that he committed on Madame Pellicot. Well, he decided he was going to get cute and appeal, despite the fact there was a video, despite the fact Dominique Pellicot clearly pointed at him and said, you did this.
Every single thing that took place in that courtroom, but I mean everything, says he's guilty. What do you think? I'm an idiot or something?
So he goes and appeals. He appeals, and in France, their level of appeals court is a jury of 3 judges and 9 ordinary citizens. And this appeals court ended up giving him a harsher sentence. So they gave him 10 years in prison as a result of him appealing his case, which is interesting, right? Because it's sort of like you roll the dice.
Well, what do you want? I say he's guilty.
I mean, this case has rightfully sparked significant public outrage, and it's been the center of discussions about online platforms being used to facilitate and perpetrate abuse.
Whether the country should change its rape law to include consent has been a hotly contested issue, and now a review has been launched into the legislation.
Public exposure is not necessarily helpful, though, when it comes to political investigations or ongoing criminal cases. So you may be wondering, if Giselle Pellicot's approach is so empowering, why is public commentary in other cases sometimes problematic? Well, oversharing when you are a government official or the president of the United States doesn't help anyone.
On social media, Trump called Comey, quote, guilty as hell, adding nothing is being done.
Pam Bondi discussing Comey or Bondi discussing Luigi. Oh, okay, Pammy, you need to stop, girl. You need to stop, okay?
I love that picture. That's a great picture. And there were a lot of people there that night. I think the entire cabinet was there.
Did you discuss James Comey with the President of the United States? He was sitting just to your left.
Well, 2 seats down, yes.
In which Attorney General Bondi was asked if that Truth Social post you saw beside Senator Blumenthal was the cause of this filing of this criminal case against James Comey. It happened just a few days before.
But it illustrates this perfectly, because here you have online chatter that doesn't help the legal process. It muddies it. And it's also harmful into certain cases, as we've seen, because now this conspiracy theorists get in the mix, and now everybody's running off with their own different set of facts that have nothing to do with reality, that have nothing to do with the evidence. And now that also taints the jury pool, because again, the people who sit on the jury of these cases are pulled from the community. And if they're hearing all these conspiracy theories, if they're starting to come up with alternative scenarios to what may have happened, are they really focusing on the bona fide evidence that law enforcement collected, that the testimony of what witnesses saw, if there's a living victim, the testimony of the victim, that sort of thing? Are they going to believe what's in front of their eyes, or are they going to believe some foolishness they saw online? You ask all these questions in jury selection, like, can you be fair and impartial? Did you get any pre-trial coverage about this case? Do you already have an opinion as to this person's guilt or innocence? People will smile and nod and play in your face and go into the jury room with their own fully formed set of opinions, and that is really problematic to justice.
I've stumbled onto a major company conspiracy, Mac. How about that for stress? What the hell are you talking about? This company is being bled like a stuck pig, Mac, and I got a paper trail to prove it. Check this out.
So even in Hollywood, you have firms that are now deliberately releasing info to shape public opinion, as in the Baldoni versus Lively mess, going as far to subpoena influencers like Perez Hilton and Candace Owens, and saying that they were actually paid to smear their stars, which I don't know that I necessarily believe that, but whatever. We'll see what plays out. But speaking of Owens,
Jean-Michel Trogneau took Brigitte Trognau's identity at some point. It's very obvious he kind of becomes his sister.
she kept doubling down And it got to the point that now the Macrons are suing her for defamation because they're like, listen, you can't seem to keep our names out of your mouth.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth!
Her latest demands and this whole motion to dismiss was insisting that she have a medical exam by an independent third party, basically to prove that she's not a man. Which, no ma'am, she is not entitled to any of that. But her team can request Brigitte Macron's medical records. Tom Clare stating that Brigitte is planning and willing to present scientific evidence in her lawsuit. It's just, oh my God.
Your head will collapse if there's nothing in it, and you'll ask yourself,
the foolishness.
where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
And this firm previously did a 400-page claim where when they went after Fox over Dominion, and this firm won a huge settlement. So this is not a new strategy for this nonpartisan firm. They represented Sarah Palin against the New York Times. But again, firms are allowed to leak information strategically because defense attorneys have a different ethical obligation than prosecutors do. So they are allowed to release a certain amount of information just, again, to kind of shape the narrative for their client. That's what you hire a firm to do. It's not illegal. But the key thing here is, just remember, the next time you read about a high-profile case online, this is likely what they want the public to see, and it doesn't necessarily include all of the evidence, which is why you wait until all the evidence is in before you start commenting on the evidence, which is what I'm choosing to do in the Tyler Robinson case. Folks are like, hey, why don't you talk about this? What about the trajectory of the bullet? What about this? What about that? It is still early days, and the investigation is still ongoing. You may not be hearing about it, and I hope you don't hear about it, because if an investigation is done properly, the next thing you hear is what comes out in the court. And that's how it should be. What's the takeaway today? Public opinion, definitely not going anywhere. Social media, definitely not going anywhere. And the way we digest legal cases online is forever changed. But as we've seen, it can be empowering or it can be damaging. It all depends on how it's used. The devil is always in the details. So that's it for today's episode of Melba Make It Make Sense. I hope we've given you a little bit of clarity, a bit of caution, and maybe a little bit of curiosity about everything that is happening right now. What can I say? Hope I made it make sense. Take care. See you next week. Bye.